I'm Derek.
And I'm Dylan.
We're Proletariat-Designs.
And today we're going to be discussing the CZ70 pistol, one that we've sort of taken and heavily modified with 3D printing to make it a more up-to-date pistol. We've just basically added some grips to it and changed the sight system up a little bit.
Yeah, and this was really the first prototype pistol that we started working on with 3D printing.
Yeah, it really was. So let's take a look at it and see what we can find out.
Alright, so we've got our two CZ70s out here. Now, these are the government models, so they do say JOR, which is the word for model, so Model 70.
Yeah, and it's interesting, all the issued weapons, whether it be military, police, or just general issued governmental weapons, they will all say JOR on them, where the ones made for the commercial market will not have the word JOR on there. Now, the CZ70 is basically an updated CZ50. The CZ50 can be converted into a CZ70, and there were several CZ50s that were, but these, however, were ones that were made in the 70s. They started off life as a CZ70. It's this sort of updated.
So it is a straight blowback pistol.
Yep.
These are chambered 32 ACP or 7.65 Browning.
And now there are some people who will say that the European 7.65 Browning round is a little bit different ammunition than what you buy that's manufactured in America. I'm not going to say that's true. I have taken some different brands and looked at them with the micrometer and found there are some difference, but I think you can find that with any sort of brand. I don't think that's necessarily...
Yeah, I think that's more of a manufacturing variance than a complete different design on the 32
yeah,
ACP
I agree with that.
7.65 Browning.
But with that in mind, the Fiocchi and a lot of the European brands do run very good in these. They run a lot better than something that you may get that's sort of the North American brands.
Now, they do claim that this is a PP variant, but there are some vast differences on these. So, on your PP, you've got the safety on the slide. These are actually built into the frame. Now, on your PP, when you go to put it into the safe, it decocks it. With these, all of these are unloaded. When you put it in the safe, you can actually chamber around, put it in the safe, and the hammer stays back. Now, if you push it just a little further, it goes and decocks it.
Yeah, instead of having the automatic decocker, it's got one that's separate, really giving you full control over the firearm and all of its various controls that it has there.
Yeah, and the way that these break down is there's a button, and when you push this, it is what is used to bring your slide back and take it off.
Yeah, and on the PP design, you'll pull on the trigger guard to sort of negotiate that, whereas in the CZ70s, it has an actual button.
Yeah, it is double action and single action. The double action is surprisingly not bad.
No, it's really not. A lot of these double action old surplus pistols have a very strong double action, but this one is actually very light. It's one that's very, very user friendly.
Yeah, it has a loaded round indicator. As you can see, when you actually chamber around, it will push that out, and the button, you'll see that work on the other side. Very, very easy to see, very easy to feel. I like it.
Yeah, it really is very nice. And these do not use the sort of European style magazine release. Like the PP, they do have a button up here that's very easy to get to. So that's really what you've got going on as far as features go. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the 3D printed stuff that we have added here.
Yeah, so on this, my favorite addition is the front sight. And what we did was we drilled a hole right behind the front sight post, and we actually melted or mended the ABS from the bottom up through the top so that it's firmly attached.
Yeah, it's pretty much a solid piece there, and it doesn't remove the original iron sights. It is connected to the frame through the top and the bottom, but it covers up the old sight with just a hole right behind there.
It does, and we placed a fiber optic tube right there with an opening, so it doesn't catch a lot of light, but it really does glow in daylight.
It really does, and with that bright ABS plastic, you really do get a nice vision there. Also, we did widen the back sight as well. From the factory, these sights were not as user-friendly as some of the other sights on surplus pistols, and that was really one of the hinderings of this pistol. And there were some various people we had out. We had a third one. There was a third pistol bought when we bought ours. Somebody else we know purchased one, and which theirs has a pearl ABS on it, as opposed to the bright colors. But they had a little bit difficulty. They weren't somebody who shot a lot, and the sights were a little difficult for them to use. But with the updates with the 3D printing, the sights are very easy to use, almost like using sort of any modern firearm with very simple sights.
The next thing we're going to talk about are the magazines. So the magazines seem to be the culprit of all the failure to feeds that we've had. And what happens is, well, it's a combination of two things, possibly three. These followers become, I guess, bent out of shape, and they don't retain the correct angle, causing the rounds not to feed properly. As well as your lips right here on the top of the magazine tend to bow out and open, which also causes that round to kind of shoot up and out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of variations on the magazine. As you can see here, we've made ourselves a little holster for our little magazines, but some of them will have 9 holes. They're all 8-round magazines, but some will have a 9th one so you can see when you're full, where others will not. And all of the sort of followers are a little bit different. And all the magazines we've got somewhere around 6 or 7 magazines for these, and they're all different for some reason or another. And if you do have a bad follower, you'll push on the front and you'll feel the whole thing be sort of wobbly. They all are a little bit wobbly when you push backwards on them or push on the back side, but when you push on the front, that should be firm and not change angle. And so that's something you need to look for, because some of these pistols, when we first bought them, they would shoot very clean, no issues, but some of them would have a really bad problem feeding, and it was because of the magazines, we determined. And we may not have noticed that had we not bought several of these same pistols. So you got to watch your magazines, and that's one of the things that really hinders the quality of one of these purchases, will be the magazine and not the pistol itself.
Yeah, we had a couple magazines that even after working on the feed lips and the follower, they still didn't feed properly, and we replaced the spring with a Wolf spring, magazine spring, and that cleared the issue up. The springs may get weakened, may look into just buying completely new magazines.
Yeah, you can purchase some third-party magazines that are made for these, and that's not a bad route to go. Another thing, these are surplus pistols. When we did buy them, the trigger's not bad, but it felt a little bit gritty. But after shooting them, that really broke back in, and sometimes you got to re-break in the surplus pistols, but that's just something to be expected. And one last thing, on this one here, which we do have 3D printed grips, it's not something that's totally necessary for these. They are 32. The grips are not bad. The grips from the factory do make it a little difficult to hit this button. They're very close to it, and it's not very tall. So that's why ours are cut back here. It makes that a little bit more accessible. But the 32 round does not kick that in this at all. It's a very fun gun to shoot. Doesn't have much recoil at all. With the ABS and the rubber back here, it doesn't have hardly any recoil, and it's very fun to shoot.
Yeah, there's almost no felt recoil out of the 32 on these.
No, there's really not. So this one here has a belt clip that's been attached to it. As you can see, it's sort of the prototype. It's got a little bit of a circled UFO theme going on there. Not saying it's the X-Files pistol. There was a 32 ACP Walther PP variant used by Scully early on in the series. It wasn't a CZ70, but it was one that looked very similar to this. But nonetheless, as you see, there is a belt clip here. Really almost gives it its own holster, makes it very easy to use.
Yeah, these pistols really aren't too heavy.
No, they're not.
I mean, they're obviously going to be heavier than a polymer frame pistol.
But they're well balanced. It feels good in your hand. The balancing feels good in your hand.
It does. Like we said, not much muzzle rise, and it's thin, so that belt clip, it works great.
Yeah, the belt clip really makes this a very concealable firearm, very comfortable firearm. Sometimes the controls on it do sort of dig into you, depending on whether you're left-handed or right-handed, depending on how you conceal it.
So the price point of these, they're about a $200 pistol right now. And to me, I think it's well worth the $200.
I do too. Especially, I don't think you can get the quality from a lot of new pistols. And granted, you may have to tweak the magazines, but for $200, you can get a very high quality pistol. Very enjoyable
good shooting pistol.
Yes, very good shooting pistol. You just need to sort of keep those magazines in check. So it is something we would recommend.
Alright, well, thank you for watching the video. I'm Derek.
And I'm Dylan.